So, something you said in our last video kind of piqued my curiosity. Talking about balancing passion and responsibility. And it made me think, like, I'm like heavily into responsibility.
Yes, you are.
I lean a little too far in that direction, probably.
Right.
And one of the good things about like this fun we're having with perfume and fragrance is that I'm being a little bit more frivolous about things than I normally would be.
Yeah.
And it's definitely bringing me out of my comfort zone.
You think it's loosening you up in a good way?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. In a way that makes me very uncomfortable.
Sure. Well, when I say in a good way, I mean like a good for you way.
Yeah, I do think it's good.
A growth
for
expansion
me.
way. Yeah.
It's not, doesn't feel good, but I know it's good for me because it stretches me psychologically. It opens my mind to, you could buy yourself something fun just because you love it.
Right.
And you can also be responsible and like calculate, income versus debt and all that.
Right.
But you don't have to only do that. And I think that's where I've been stuck for a long, long time is like, no, like we don't have the extra, we have all these other things we need to take care of first. Like,
yeah, being stuck in sort of the cold hard calculus side of life is the Senex
and
complex.
I hate calculus so much. Oh, I hate it.
And you do lean more towards that, and I lean more towards the frivolous side, and so we serve as a good balance for one another, and if we're not attached to our way of being, which you and I are not, right, then we can sort of let the other person's perspective kind of work on us and create some shift and change.
So I think what I need to figure out, though, is you figured out when I start to get antsy and uncomfortable that you might be a little out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
I need to figure out what it is that you do that is my cue to, like, chill the fuck out and, like, relax.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be a little bit more...
Yeah.
Less responsible and more...
Right.
Free.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would be.
I don't either. Yeah. Yeah. But... coming back to kind of the addiction side of this, right? Which is how do people know if they're too far down that? Like, there's this balance between let people live and do what they love and make their own decisions versus, you and I are trained to see clear signs and indicators of people who are imbalanced or in an imbalanced state or who are possessed by an archetypal complex. We haven't really talked about this, but...
it's a fragrance channel.
It's a fragrance channel, but this is what we do for a living, right?
Yeah.
Is work with people who are struggling in life and help identify what's going on and do counseling and hypnosis work to help get down to a subconscious level of what the belief systems are that are keeping them stuck where they don't want to be, and working with all of that. And so an example is... in one of the forums the other day, I don't know if you saw this, I don't think we talked about it, somebody did like a legit check or was like checking to make sure that a bottle was real, right? She didn't want to get scammed.
Yeah.
And at the end of this, she says, I really want to make sure, that like I can't afford to get scammed. I'm out of a job, or
oh God, I
did you see
that?
I don't remember exactly, but it was either like I'm not working or I'm out of a job or I've got like medical bills to pay or something like that.
I did see that, and I was like, what?
And I was like, okay, like whether the bottle is real or fake, right? The money's still going out.
Yeah, you're missing
right?
the point.
Yeah, and somebody else made a point of like, well, maybe this person has like a monthly budget and they don't want to lose their monthly budget.
Yeah.
Their monthly perfume budget on something that, is a waste and get scammed. I'm like, yeah, I get that. And also, boy, if you're that close to the line, I think that's the place where you got to start asking tough questions, right? And this is not a criticism. I would say that's been me at certain times in the last year. Like, we're never struggling to pay medical bills, or we're not going to lose our home, but on the responsibility side of the equation, there were times I was like, okay, man, like that's a lot of money that you dropped this month. And again, like I was saying previously, where else could that money have gone?
Right.
And was this really a responsible decision, or were you taken over by something, right? Were you really compelled by forces kind of beyond your control to make these purchases? And you know, I'm not an addict at all. Like I don't have an addictive personality. I've never been addicted to anything in my life. I'm not a heavy drinker. I don't like pills. I smoke the hell out of cigars, but I go through phases where I'm like, and I can put it down and walk away for weeks at a time or months, and it doesn't affect me. I don't go through withdrawal. It's not, right? But even I have struggled with that shopping compulsion, and so it's a fine line, and you have to be willing to sort of take a step back and evaluate what it's actually costing you, and how do you feel after the fact. So one of the other signs for me is I went through and went, oh, I gotta get that vintage and this vintage. I really went on my vintage kick, right? And I got these in and would smell some of them and be like, you know, like, you know, the experience wasn't matching the high of the impulse and the purchase. And it was clear to me when that happened, I think 2 or 3 times in a row, that like I wasn't really making good decisions. I wasn't really evaluating things from the perspective of somebody who loves fragrance.
Interesting.
Because if I were, I would be getting these in and going, yep, that's me. That fits my collection. That's the one.
That's a good choice that I made.
Right. There was a lot of sort of like, you know, morning after regret. Right. And so these are the signs and things that I think people have to be willing to kind of look at and evaluate. You know, I mean, that can be true even for people who have enough money, and that's what's tricky, right?
Oh,
Just because you have a lot of money doesn't mean you're not a perfume addict. Just because you can afford your addiction doesn't mean you're not an addict.
Yeah, you don't have a problem with shopping or whatever.
Right.
Whatever the consumption pattern is.
And also, it's not just a purchasing and money thing. You know, I have asked myself the question, I think even directly to you. You know, I have been deep into fragrance for, 2 years.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to you at some point, I was like, what the hell did I do before fragrance? It's like, what did I do with my life?
Nothing.
Because
no, that's not true.
Because
you were into other shit.
Yeah, here and there, but nothing like this passion. And it is all consuming.
Yeah.
Much of my life, most of my life revolves around fragrance now. Not just my love for going up and putting it on and wearing it, and then materials and blending and making, but buying, selling, decanting,
talking about researching it, looking
listening
up notes.
I mean, I'm
listening to fragrance creators on YouTube.
It is like most of my waking life involves fragrance in some way.
That's how I am too, though. I just don't have it about things. I have it about topics. Like, I'm very, I'm in a phase of being super into dream analysis and archetypes and psychology. And there have been so many times in my life where I have been deeply, deeply fascinated with something. It just doesn't, for me, it doesn't always correlate with purchasing things. It often doesn't. If it does, it's like books.
Sure.
Books on things.
Right.
I have definitely, I can't tell you how many times I've purchased books and been like, well, I'm not going to read this, but yay, I have the book now.
Right.
So that's my problem.
Well,
I have a lot of books.
And I mean, part of the irony too is, now being on a platform that is basically built for addiction.
Yeah.
Like this is the platform itself is addictive and can keep you going and going and going. And so,
here we are,
whether it's about money or information, it's about taking a step back and looking at your life, like I have to do now, and go, this is my passion. I love it. I'm enjoying it. I'm getting a lot out of it. And also, I'm going to bed 2 hours later than I normally do, and I'm getting tired during the day, and I'm not working out as hard or as often, so I need to evaluate.